Tonight we are traveling with Migrant 26 hours from Texas to Washington, D.C. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. Nicole Cross. It's not unusual for asylum seekers to hop on a bus and travel to different locations across the country, but the state doesn't usually pay for it. John Salazar has more from Del Rio. The national mask mandate on public transportation is no longer in effect. For some perspective on the impact here in Texas, our Ashley Claster hopped on a flight from Dallas to Houston at the state's biggest airports and spoke with a few passengers. Take a look. Tonight, the Dallas Mavericks kick off Game 2 of their NBA playoff series with the Utah Jazz. Sports anchor Travis Raycheck joins us now with more. Travis, they were close over the weekend, but no win. What's going to happen tonight? Hello, and thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Dr. Nicole Cross. We begin with the latest on the war in Ukraine. A Russian court is remanding a former U.S. Marine's appeal for release. Trevor Reed's appeal is being sent back to a lower court for review. Reed was first arrested back in 2019 for allegedly assaulting Moscow police officers. He was sentenced to 9 years in prison. He denies all charges. The U.S. is looking into reports that Russian forces used chemical weapons when attacking the Ukrainian port of Mariupol. According to the BBC, 3 Ukrainian soldiers were injured by a poisonous substance Monday. The Pentagon called this potential use of chemical weapons, quote, deeply concerning. Western nations have already pledged to take firm action if Russia is using chemical weapons. More than 3,400 civilians have been killed since Russia invaded Ukraine over a month ago. And the death toll is expected to rise as Ukrainian troops begin recapturing areas once held by Russian troops. A North Texas man born in Kyiv is returning home to defend his country. Chris Grisby has his story. Now, coming up later in the hour, we'll meet a Ukrainian immigrant now living in Texas who says she is experiencing survivor's guilt as she watches attacks in her home country. Now to the latest on the southern border. Truck drivers continue to block traffic on the Pharr International Bridge. They are protesting Governor Greg Abbott's new vehicle inspection order. This bridge connects Pharr and Reynosa. It is the busiest trade crossing in the Rio Grande Valley. Truckers say they're not opposed to inspections, but that checking every single one is unnecessary, especially since commercial vehicles are already checked when they enter the port. Drivers say they plan to shut down this bridge until Governor Abbott eases inspections. A school district along the coastal bend is facing a massive teacher shortage. Crystal Dominguez explains how they're now teaming up with the Mexican government to bring more educators to Texas. As always, we want to thank you for spending part of your afternoon with us here on Spectrum News 1. It really is our privilege to provide you with exclusive, unbiased news reporting from communities across the state. And we do want to hear from you, so be sure to download that Spectrum News 1 app and connect with us. And you may need that app because we are tracking some severe weather. Megan, I know that's something you've been looking into.
Yes, absolutely.
The Dallas Mavericks now hold a 2-1 series lead over the Jazz. The Mavs took Game 3 last night in Utah. It was the third game without their star guard, Luka Doncic, but it wasn't a problem as Jalen Brunson led the team to victory. The Mavs and Jazz hit the court for Game 4 tomorrow night in Utah. Tip-off is at 3:30 p.m. And in baseball, the Texas Rangers ended a 5-game losing streak last night after taking down the Mariners. It didn't look good in the first 4 innings, with Texas giving up 5 runs, but they were able to rally in the 5th to take the lead. The Rangers now head to Oakland for a 3-game series against the Athletics. First pitch is at 8:40 p.m. tonight. Welcome back. While the legal battle over ending Title 42 continues, organizations here in Texas are already preparing for the fallout. Thousands of migrants from Latin America and Africa find themselves in San Antonio. It's become a transportation hub for asylum seekers as they await court decisions. Amber Hughes spoke with a group helping migrants along their journey. Take a look. Title 42 is in limbo while the Supreme Court takes up the Remain in Mexico policy. Now, Title 42 allows the government to expel migrants in the name of public health. With COVID cases dropping, the Biden administration had planned to end it next month. That is, until a federal judge blocked the plan last night. Now, the other immigration policy being debated is the Migrant Protection Protocols, also known as Remain in Mexico. That policy forces asylum seekers to wait in Mexico while their case plays out in court. The Biden administration is looking to end the policy, but the state of Texas has sued to keep it in place. That decision is now in the hands of the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. That's where we find our Rena Diamante. Rena, what's the latest? Nearly a dozen wildfires were reported over the weekend, 4 in New Mexico, 3 in Colorado, and 1 each here in Texas, Nebraska, and South Dakota. According to the National Interagency Fire Center, more than 1,300 square miles have already burned this year, outpacing the 10-year average by 30%. Welcome back. Right now, a massive manhunt is underway in New York City for a suspect who police say set off a smoke bomb and opened fire in a subway car during rush hour this morning. At least 16 people were injured in that subway attack. 10 were shot. 5 of them are listed in critical but stable condition. Police are searching for the suspect. We will share more details as this story develops. Back here at home, a new report found that while violent crime in Dallas overall is down from this time last year, we are still seeing an increase in homicides. One of the recent victims is a Texas pastor who was shot and killed in South Dallas. Lupi Zapata has more. The White House is calling Russia's invasion of Ukraine a failure. The Pentagon says Russian forces are moving away from the capital city of Kyiv and may also be withdrawing from the west. The U.S. also announced that it's sending more aid to Ukraine. More than 4.5 million people have fled the country since the start of the war. Olivia Leveda spoke with a Ukrainian immigrant now living in Texas who says she is experiencing survivor's guilt as she watches attacks continue in her home country. Before we head to break, I just want to take a moment to thank you for spending part of your afternoon with Spectrum News 1. It is our privilege to provide you with exclusive, unbiased news reporting from communities all across the state. And we would love to hear from you on social media. You can download our Spectrum News 1 app and connect with us. It's a great day for us to chat because there's a lot going on weather-wise. Megan is back with a preview of what you're going to be discussing regarding this severe weather.
Yes, exactly.
I'm Dr. Nicole Cross. Officials say the soldier went missing along the Rio Grande after jumping in the river to save a drowning woman. It happened near the city of Eagle Pass. Investigators say the woman was able to make it to shore, but there was no sign of the soldier. Divers are being brought in to help with the search. Meantime, buses carrying migrants continue to make their way from Texas to D.C. Our Spectrum News 1 team has followed that entire journey. John Salazar shows us how those migrants are planning their next steps. All right, Chief Meteorologist Burton Fitzsimmons back with us now with a look at the forecast. How's it looking, Burton?
Well, continuing to be windy.
We are joined now by Jenna Bush Hager and Barbara Pierce Bush, Texans, former First Daughters, and authors of a new children's book called The Superpower Sisterhood. Tell us all about it.
Yeah. Well, we wrote The Superpower Sisterhood really as an ode to our mom. It's about an only child, which sounds kind of unusual for a book about sisters, but it's about a little girl who dreams of having siblings. And then a group of sisters move onto her block, and they make her feel more powerful than she ever thought possible. So it's about how sisterhood in all of its forms, and friendship and family can make us feel brave.
What do you hope readers get out of the book?
Well, we hope they see the power of sisterhood. In our book, each of the girls has a power that's a normal power. One's great at dancing, one's great at math, one's great at design. And then when all of them are together, their powers become super powerful. And that's how we feel about sisterhood. When we have our best friends or our blood sisters who walk alongside us and have our back, then all of a sudden we can do more than we ever thought we could. And that's what we want our readers, whether they're young or old, to see and remember and support their sisters in whatever form they are.
Absolutely. And I'm curious to know, Jenna, what's your superpower?
Well, I should tell you my sister's superpower because I don't really know my own. But my sister's superpower is that she has a huge heart and that she puts it to action, more importantly, which I think is so, you know, she didn't just like sit with that heart, but she gives it to the world. She started a global health non-for-profit. She works tirelessly to make sure others' lives are better.
That's so sweet, Sissy. Well, I'll answer your original question.
Yes.
My sister's superpower. She has two. One, she's really funny, which I've benefited from my whole life.
Although
'cause
she regrets laughing at me.
I mean, I might have enabled her when we were younger.
I'm curious also to know what Texas values do you want to impart in your children, if any? And what about your upbringing that you want to make sure is a part of your children's lives?
Yeah. Well, I feel like a major Texas value is to dream big. There's a reason everyone says everything's bigger in Texas. And I love that, the idea of possibility and that you don't need to be limited. And I hope that my daughter knows that. She doesn't know that quite yet because
Right.
I'm not sure she's
Maybe
taking it all
intrinsically.
in.
Yes.
She knows she's
But
a
the
genius.
idea, well, she is a genius.
Yeah.
But the idea that the sky is actually the limit, and that if we dream big and work hard, we can achieve what we want. And I love that as a mindset in Texas, that I definitely feel more here than I do in the other places that I've lived.
I think also Texans are so kind.
Yeah.
The first time my husband came to Texas, he's from Virginia. Virginians are kind too. But the first time he came, he was like, those people just brought us breakfast tacos, like out of the kindness of their heart. And I'm like, yes. I mean, we live in New York City, so people don't really do that. So that kindness and compassion is something we want to teach our kids. My oldest daughter goes to camp in Texas, sleepaway camp. She started last year. It's the same camp Barbara and I went to. It's the camp my dad went to. So, I mean, people in New York think it's hilarious that we're going down to Texas where it's so hot in the summer. There's no air conditioning. But I think what she's learning is the beauty of nature, too. I mean, Austin, all over Texas, is some of the most beautiful landscape, and I think we sort of take it for granted, but when you leave and you come back and there's the wildflowers and Big Bend and West Texas, like our state is magnificent.
It is.
And it's still our state, even though we haven't lived here. And
it always
Good.
will be.
Yeah.
Always, always. There's no place like home. There's no place like Texas. All right, and here's a look at the upcoming dates for their book tour. They'll be in College Station in Arlington on Saturday and then in Dallas on Sunday.